Take a second to notice the environment that you're in right now. Now ask yourself, how does this specific environment affect my behavior? I used to think that our environment didn't really affect us, but more and more I'm starting to see how we're surrounded by an algorithm of triggers that is getting better and better at predicting and controlling our behavior. What could this cost us?
Is on defense now.
We've been dreaming about making this for years.
This video has 3 parts. First, we'll look at misconceptions about our environment that I didn't even know I had. Then we'll look at 3 ways to not be controlled by our environment. And once we're in control again, then we can look at how do we let the environment do the hard work for us, especially when we're trying to change something about ourselves, like breaking a habit or achieving a goal that you have. But first, here are 3 misconceptions you need to know about your environment. Number 1. My environment doesn't affect me. I used to believe this until I read this book, Triggers by Marshall Goldsmith. And one of the things that it talks about in here is how the same person can be almost unrecognizable depending on the environment. Like, have you ever gotten to know someone in one specific setting and then you see them in a totally new environment, whether that be at work or with their family or a stressful situation, and all of a sudden they turn into a totally different person right in front of your eyes? Same person, different environments. And this frustrates me so much sometimes because in one environment, I may be happy, funny, and quick-witted, and the next, I'm about as bright as a box of rocks. Like, what happened? I liked the other me. Why can't I just keep that? Well, the environment changed, and I changed with it. Number 2. I'm in control of my environment. As much as we hate to admit it, we are often the ones that are actually controlled by our environments. For example, have you ever picked up your phone to do something perfectly normal and then just got totally sidetracked doing something completely random? It happens to us all the time, and sometimes it happens without us even noticing it. But this is a perfect example of your environment hijacking your attention and you very much not being in control. Now, if we're proactive, we can influence our environment and we can resist being mindlessly pushed and pulled around, which is what we will learn in the second part of this video. But we are far from being in control and being the ones calling the shots. Number 3, I am in sync with my environment. We often think that our environment is helping us or pushing us towards luck or our goals. But actually, the environment rarely goes in the direction we are going. We bite our tongues trying to keep our thoughts to ourselves, or we get stressed out when we see the news. Not to mention, sometimes we are just simply at the wrong place at the wrong time. Now, the question is, how do we stop being controlled by our environment? Sure, we may not be in control, but we can influence how we respond and interact with it. This book covers 3 aspects I want to touch on briefly, and then after that, we'll actually put it into practice and say, okay, how do we actually do this? Like, what are my environments and how do I apply this? Question: would you rather face a temptation head on, dominate it with your amazing willpower, and emerge victorious, or just avoid it and run away? Here's what's interesting. We're generally good at avoiding environments that present physical or emotional risk, or that just are unpleasant, whether it's that person that makes fun of you or the dark alleyway that you're pretty sure is haunted. On the other hand, we rarely avoid an environment that's enjoyable, even if we know that it's really bad for us. Harder yet to stop ourselves after starting. I mean, how many times have you eaten one Dorito and decided to quit because it was unhealthy? Like, no. And because we love a challenge, we flirt with temptation instead of just completely removing it from our path, like the dark alleyway. For myself, I had to get away from this impulse to always engage rather than selectively avoid. Because no matter how you slice it, plain and simple avoidance is one of the best ways to not be controlled by your environment. To avoid undesirable behavior, avoid the environments where it is most likely to occur. Now, some environments we shouldn't avoid, or they aren't avoidable. So what do we do in a case like that? Here we have the final 2 points, which is awareness and then adjustment. Here's a classic example. What happens when you're with a group of people, your family, friends, whatever, and you start to get bored? Yeah, distraction device or building relationships. Hard call. So let's say I'm trying to change this habit of pulling out my phone when I get bored in a group of people. First, I become aware of the behavior, which is that when I get bored in this environment, I pull out my phone. From here, we can now make an adjustment, which could be leaving my phone in the car or setting it on the counter so that I don't turn to it when I get distracted. Because like we said earlier, it's way harder to stop something enjoyable right in the middle than to simply not start in the first place. Okay, but maybe you're not trying to fix your phone addiction and this is something that is not enjoyable, but that you have to do, like public speaking, for example. So again, you want to become aware of how that environment is affecting you, and then ask yourself, what adjustments can I make that will allow this experience to be less terrifying or more enjoyable, or fill in the blank. And here's a little practice you can do. The next time you catch yourself doing something that you didn't want to do or shouldn't do, ask yourself, could I have avoided this? What about that habit that you went back to? Was it avoidable? Or if it's something that you have to engage with, ask yourself, okay, how could I have adjusted to make this environment better? This adjustment is what we need to use to make the environment do the hard work for us, which is what we will learn in this simple exercise. The power of this is once you do this a few times, it'll just become a part of you and you'll just start to do this and notice these things naturally. So get a piece of paper or pull out your handy dandy pocket notebook and write down at least 5 of the most common environments that you spend your time in. For me, this would be my office, my studio, the gym, church, and coffee shop. From here, we want to identify what the purpose is of each environment. So for my office, that would be editing. For my studio, that would be recording. Gym would be physical health, and so on. Another great question to ask is, how does each one of these environments affect me? Do I change for better or worse? Or what in my environment is affecting that change? And you can take more time to do this later. This is just more to get you thinking. We've identified our environments, but we need to eliminate the non-essential. We'll do it together. So pick one of your environments from your list. For me, I'm gonna choose my office, which is basically just my desk. So working on that. So editing is what I do there, but what do I need to edit better or faster? Or another way of thinking about it is, what direction am I trying to go in? For example, that could be like, I need to be focused. I need to be disciplined. I need to be productive. That's what I hope to be doing more of while I'm editing. Okay, what do I need to eliminate from the environment to help me be more focused, more disciplined, more productive? Okay, so first of all, I could probably remove the 2 bags of chips as well as the 2 books that are cluttering my desk. I could probably restrict access to social media on my laptop while I'm working. I could, remove my phone, etc. There's lots of things we could do. And again, all of this is falling in that lens of what we're working towards, which is focused productivity and discipline. And this is really, really important. We need to eliminate the non-essential, aka what doesn't help us or what doesn't take us closer to where we want to go, before we add or adjust. So many times we think the solution to our problem is adding things. For example, when I said, what do I need to edit better or faster? Like the first thing that came to my mind is like a new mouse, a new keyboard, maybe a new screen. But if I'm still browsing YouTube every 30 minutes instead of editing, it didn't really help. What actually is gonna help me the most? It's just staying disciplined. It's being focused on my project. And maybe the best part of the elimination process is that now we can use our final advantage. Now we can do the important process of executing the essential. We do it like this. Now that we've removed the non-essential from our environment, we find the things that can't be removed or that only need to be adjusted or maybe even add something. In my case, there isn't much that I needed to add, other than I have a little shelf that I leave on there for organization and a sticky note that reminds me to notice my environment. Recently, I added a standing desk. There's things like that, but nothing dramatic. And if you're not quite sure like what to add or what to adjust, a good question that I like to ask myself is, what would I need in my environment to dramatically make this process easier, or make me more productive, make me more comfortable, make me less stressed, make me learn this instrument faster, etc. The key phrase in there is dramatically. And it'll depend on which environment you're examining as to whether you need to eliminate or adjust things in your environment. You know, maybe there's a family conflict, right? You don't just want to avoid that. At some point you have to step up, and you have to face that. So it really does depend on what your environment is. Okay, so let's recap just a little bit. So we covered the misconceptions about our environment, how to stop being controlled by our environment, and lastly, how to create an environment for success, or an environment that helps you achieve what you want to achieve. The important thing is actually put this into practice. So before you leave this video, identify at least one environment and something that either you need to eliminate or adjust. And if your environment is one where you're trying to learn something faster or better, I would encourage you to check out this video in the center of the screen, where I break down some of the most important and powerful methods of learning something very, very quickly and very well.